Again.
Okay.
I was recording. So you were telling me basically about the impact of drugs in Chicago. You were saying at first the gang leaders wouldn't let the crack in. So when you first
So
came,
so so in
okay.
80 in 80 in the early 80s, okay,
Hmm.
so crack basically started in LA like about in the mid 80s, 80,
Hmm.
84, 85.
Hmm.
Chicago didn't see that. Chicago didn't see that. Now, I'm not saying that cocaine wasn't there. Cocaine, okay, so let me give you an example. In about 82, 83, hanging out with the boys and stuff like that. I'm just telling you what I remember. Um, so one day they were talking about drugs. They were talking about there was a powder that the lawyers and the doctors were using downtown Chicago that is exclusive. Only the white. It's called. It was considered called. We called it the white drug. That only the white people had it.
Hmm.
Harvey, Illinois, never. I mean, I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Like I'm. No one. None of my boys even seen it. We just heard it was a powder, a white powder that the white people use. It was a
Hmm.
white drug.
Hmm.
Never heard, never seen it, heard about it, never knew what it was. We had never touched it. All right. So, but that wasn't true years later.
Right, right, right.
But I'm telling you, Aki, this is so strange, that there was a time when black people never knew what cocaine was.
Yeah,
Like
that's crazy.
that's
That's
crazy.
crazy.
If you can compare it to the 90s where it's like cocaine was just flooding the streets, it's
Hmm.
unbelievable. So in Chicago, it was known for heroin, known for weed, alcohol. That's it. Like I
Hmm.
mean, co- cocaine would come through, but it would only be it was for the rich folks. It was Italians. It was all them kind of folks.
Hmm.
Irish, rich Irish and stuff like that. You had to be rich to associate with these kind of drugs.
Hmm.
So never knew what it was. And then around 88, 89, there was a broadcast that was a national TV about an epidemic that hit DC. But remember, by that time it had already started in LA. It had gone south. It was spreading across the country because Bloods and Crips, the gangs Bloods and Crips, like that's what they did. They spread it, the crack cocaine throughout the country. They
Right,
would leave LA and go to other parts of the country and spread the drug, and create the market for the drug.
right.
So it was in Washington D.C. before it was in Chicago. So so it's broadcast, and Marion Barry, Marion Barry was fighting against the drug epidemic and the crack epidemic, and it was destroying the city and it was affecting the people, specifically African Americans. But then later on, it became everybody because whites tend to get on it. Everybody, Asians, everybody. But then he ended up found out that he was on the drug himself, and that was
Right.
the America's drug mayor, of the nation's capital. And it was a big thing.
Hmm.
But that's when we moved into DC, and that was also the time when in DC, that was the time when the Jamaican posses was on the East Coast.
Hmm.
The Jamaican posses was coming in New York, Philly, DC, and things of that nature. So we come to DC, and I really had to think about myself, and I was just like my dad was inspiring me because my dad was an educated, hardworking man. He
Hmm.
was working in the education department. My mother was working out a two-parent household.
Hmm.
My mom and dad had just got remarried in like 87, 88,
Okay.
and then we got out of Chicago at the end of 88, 89, in the 88, 89. So November, basically when I started ninth grade year, that's when we had moved to DC. I was literally here about a month before we started school.
Hmm.
Um, and it was a different world when I got here, brother. Woo! It was unbelievable, man. Like
Hmm.
you see grown adults begging in the streets like kids for money and doing all kind of weird sexual acts. Just this total moral destruction.
Right, right.
Total moral destruction. And I saw it one time with myself because one time a lady right off of an exit to a highway in Southwest, there was a teacher standing on the corner asking for money. I mean,
Wow.
she was a beautiful teacher. She literally had a teacher's dress, and she was standing on the corner for money. So
Mm-hmm.
as soon as you come off the ramp, she would be right there begging for money. I'm talking about the first thing I thought was this teacher is raising money for students to get pencils and paper.
Mm-hmm.
Brother, whenever the weekends pass and the months pass, and that lady literally turned into a zombie, bro.
Wow.
Her clothes went raggedy, her teeth started getting bad, she started looking horrible, her skin looked horrible, just, and it's like, wow, like I will never forget this lady, and I'm so sorry for what she went through, but she became very skinny, and you can see it, bro.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Families were just dying, men were going to jail, and the government was just hitting everybody with all these long sentences and all this kind of stuff like that, and they weren't treating the people for the
Mm-hmm.
medical problems that it is the way they do for heroin today for white people. And it was a horrible monster, man. It was a horrible monster, but spirituality was my way of dealing with it, and it worked. Islam
Right.
worked for me. It worked.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha, gotcha. Let's talk a little bit about hip hop music. What was your
Yeah.
introduction to hip hop music? How'd you get into hip hop? Do
Okay,
you remember
so
the first hip hop song you ever heard?
okay, the first one probably to the hip hop,
Okay.
the hip hop, it don't drop into the bang bang baby. And so what it was, bruh, it was amazing, bruh.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing, bruh. It was literally just our release. It was our refuge. It
Mm-hmm.
was our peace. It was awesome, man.
Mm-hmm.
No, but you got to understand, the record executives didn't even want white corporate America didn't even want any parts of it.
Right.
The radio stations didn't want to play it.
Mm-hmm.
MTV did not want to play no videos. Hello, come on
Mm-hmm.
now. They didn't. MTV said they want no black artists. But
Wow.
Michael Jackson was so good and
Mm-hmm.
was in so high demand that the people forced them to play black music.
Yeah.
They did. That nobody wanted a part of that, but it was pure back then. You see what I'm saying? You didn't have all these foreigner foreign managers trying to
Mm-hmm.
get in on our culture
Right.
vultures trying to get in to destroy. And it was pure. It wasn't even gangster back then. It was just, hey man, don't push me because I'm close to the edge.
Right.
I'm trying not to lose my head. It was
Mm-hmm.
people just trying to vent and just talk about the calamities growing up in the hood and in the cities, and it was just bad. And it was a release, and because hey, somebody else is going through what I'm going through, and then it was, hey, stay inspired. It was inspiring. Keep going, brother. You can do it. Go get your education. Go to school. Go.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It was that type of a message.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Now, at that point in time, at least from what I recall, because I was young, 'cause we're talking about 89, so I was like 9 years old.
Yeah.
I don't recall if there was a big Sunni influence in hip hop at that time. I think as I
Okay.
got older,
Okay.
I started seeing more and more Sunnis, but mostly it
Yeah.
was 5% Nation of Islam, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. Let me touch on a few things into what you're saying. Okay. So like, okay, now, so early '80s, you got, and some people say the end of the '70s, early '80s, that era right there.
Hmm.
All right, then you had your Two Shorts and your Ice Teas. Later in the '80s came the NWAs, right? And that's when hip hop started to have different groups.
Right.
See what I'm saying? Your X Clans and your Boogie Down Productions and you see what I'm saying?
Hmm.
You had different genres of rap music now.
Hmm.
See that's different. Rap music is the rap music. Is the music.
Hmm.
Hip hop is the culture, which included the dress, the style, the way of talking. See,
Hmm.
hip hop it is an entire culture,
Hmm.
but rap is the music side of the culture.
Gotcha.
So rap became it started to but it was all it became beautiful because you start seeing the different sides of black men and black culture. You had the hood, you had the suburbs, which is like your Will Smith. You
Hmm.
had your African culture, like your X Clans and your Arrested Developments, You see what I'm saying? That you had so many different ways and different vibes you can go into.
Right. Right.
Now, but understand the history of black music, because when you talk about the Muslims of Philadelphia and all these different man, let me tell you how far back it goes.
Hmm.
There was a musician during the jazz era. He became Muslim. He became the first American to go on Hajj.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
Let me look him up and I'll get his name for you.
Okay.
He was the first American. If you literally if you Google him, let me see. Let me see if I can. Let me know if I go off. I'm gonna try to. Can you see me
Okay.
still?
I can see, yeah.
Okay, so while we're talking, I'm gonna Google his name.
Okay.
Let me get this name to him so that you can look more into him.
Okay.
But anyway, we're talking during the time of Miles Davis, John Coltrane. You dig what I'm saying?
Right.
And so he literally became Muslim, and he was a Sunni Muslim, and he was about the dawah. He was from Michigan. You see what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Detroit, Michigan, and so Muslims in the music industry goes back a long way.
Right. Right. Right.
Um,
And I
so
think
so
I
it,
think I know who you're talking about too. I think was his name like, because I think I just heard one of his songs. Was his name Idris Muhammad or something like that?
um,
And I heard a song by a brother, he converted to Islam, and it was around that same era. But I think his name
yeah,
was Idris Muhammad or something like that. I could be
something like
wrong.
that. Oh man, I forgot the brother's name. I'll have to look him up and get him to you.
Okay.
But Muslims have always been a part of yeah, okay, I'll get that, I'll get his name back to you.
Okay.
But Muslims have always been a part of black culture and things of this nature,
Right.
especially in times of music and things like that. Now, when you talk about a lot of different now he was a Sunni Muslim in the jazz era, and we're talking like the 1900s. You see what I'm saying? We talk about
Oh
1900s.
wow, man. That's
We're
going
talking
back.
Muslims been around for a long time
Hmm.
in that culture and things in that in our culture and stuff like that. But I'll show you even more than that though. And okay, let me just show you something real quick. So that's music, right?
Hmm.
Even when you talk about African American literature, you got to talk about Muslims,
Right.
because the first books written in America were written by Muslims.
Right.
And when they didn't write it in English, the original language that these books were written in was Arabic.
Hmm.
Balali Muhammad of Georgia, the Galapagos Islands, he was from Senegal.
Hmm.
There was Omar Ibn Said of North Carolina. He was from roughly Senegal too. Diallo of Maryland.
Hmm.
He literally wrote out an entire Quran
Oh
that it
wow.
had no mistakes.
Hmm.
So in other words, what I'm saying to you is that we come from a balanced civil culture. There
Hmm.
was music, there was culture, there was way of dress, there was food, there was things like that. And so hip hop just became another culture that black people created. You see what I'm saying?
Hmm.
And that Islam has always been a part of African American culture, because Islam came to America from Africa, from
Right.
Africans.
Hmm.
Christianity came to North America from Europeans.
Hmm.
This is nothing to be mad about, upset about. People need to understand this is just the facts. The first, the language, the oldest language in Black America in terms of speaking, writing, and reading is Arabic.
Hmm.
Our ancestors, Timbuktu is from the region where our ancestors come from in West Africa.
Hmm.
Timbuktu was a local university. It was the strongest university in West Africa, and many of the tribes would send their children there to learn Islam, and then later come home to teach it.
Hmm.
This is an old institution. This was going on for hundreds of years. So many of the Africans who came here have been students of Timbuktu or students of the students of Timbuktu.
Hmm.
The a lot of, and when you go back and study the African, because you in order to talk about hip hop and rap and things like that, you got to take it back to Africa.
Right.
And African Americans come from West Africa. That's where our ancestors came from.
Hmm.
Now, but also we have Native Americans in families as well. Not denying that. It's true. Now, but when you talk about West Africa, you have to. There was no Christianity in West Africa.
Right.
When you
Hmm.
talk about the time when Timbuktu was in existence, there was no Protestant church, period, because it's before Martin Luther.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Facts. Yeah, simple facts.
The King James version of the Bible was printed in 1611, which means that the King James version of the Bible is older than the United States of America.
Hmm.
But that Timbuktu is older than the King James version.
True.
Timbuktu is older than West African Christianity.
True.
So you have to understand that our ancestors did not speak English. Our ancestors spoke native African languages. They also knew Arabic. Many of those students of the Arabic language in West Africa was some of the best student Arabic students and teachers in the world.
Hmm.
You had to be, when you came to another country and 5, 10, 15, 20 years later, you can write perfect Arabic. What did they teach you? That was a hell of a school.
Hmm.
So anytime you talk about Black culture, you're gonna find some Muslim. It's just the way it is. Islam in Mississippi is older than the state of Mississippi.
Man, I didn't know that. Didn't know
Yeah,
that.
because Mississippi, I'd have to look up the actual. Mississippi is something like starting like something like 1839. I forget the exactly, but
Hmm.
please look it up.
Hmm.
Please look it up and don't hold it against me. But there were there were stories of Muslims in Mississippi wearing turbans
Hmm.
and wearing thobes in the 1700s
Hmm.
in what they call it in the Delta area of Mississippi.
Hmm.
So don't get it twisted. When you start talking about Islam and African Americans, man, it gets deep, brother.
Right.
It
Right.
gets real deep. So now going back to culture, we were talking about the culture. So when you talk, so I was telling you about the brother that was from Michigan. He was the first person to take Shahada. Muslims have always been a part of the music industry.
Hmm.
Then when you go into a lot the Philly sound and all this kind of Philly music sound and stuff like that, a lot of them people were Muslim. They were playing trumpets and stuff like that even before hip hop.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Oh
So
yeah.
you mean like those groups like the Philly soul groups back in the day, like I think like
Philly's
the Phonics.
exactly,
Oh,
exact. That's
okay, okay.
exactly. You're right. You hit it right on
Wow.
the head. Those
Wow.
a lot of them cats were Muslims.
Right. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, yeah. Oh man, brother, look it up because it's awesome information. Like it's awesome.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like Philly, and go back, shout out to the Philly and to the youth of Philly. Man, I lost $1. Get them away from hip hop and get away from that gangster culture, that mafia culture that is traditional to Philadelphia. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying?
Hmm.
But that there's always been a variety of Islam that came out of there because you got some of the worst examples of Muslims in the black mafia who were members of the Nation of Islam who
Hmm.
came to DC and killed an imam and his family. Talking about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's community, in the 70s.
Hmm.
But you also have sincere people who open masjids and did their best to practice Islam according to the Sunnah. And then you got people who were in the music industry and other industries like that as well.
Hmm.
Yep.
Now something
But
I
there's all yeah. So even when you talk about R&B, a
hmm
lot that's the one R&B. The R&B, a lot of the Muslims in R&B, a lot of them were Sufi Muslims. You know.
hmm
Mhm.
So have you I want to ask you about this because I know in Chicago at one point in time, you're talking about the gang culture that was developing in Chicago, and I was
Right.
reading about Jeff Fort, how he brought Islam to the gang culture, the El
Yeah.
Rookin. But I couldn't
Right.
find a whole lot of information about them. Do you know anything about
Yeah.
them and the impact they
Yeah.
had on?
Well, Okay, so first of all, when you start talking about Jeff Ford, Imam Malik, and I can connect you with another brother that Imam Sankofa. He's out of
Okay.
Chicago.
Okay.
I can connect you with him. He can really give you information. I can give you the brief on it.
Oh, awesome.
See, when you talk about Chicago, you gotta talk about when you talk about the history of Chicago, you gotta bring up Mississippi
Hmm.
because in the Great Migration, everybody from Chicago came up from Mississippi, and they also came out of Alabama. Even my dad, like I'm the first generation born in the North.
Okay.
From my dad. My
Hmm.
dad's from Alabama, Birmingham, Alabama. But when you talk about those who came out of Mississippi, like my mother's people, um, you have to talk about the way life was. Like people came up north they were escaping exploitation,
Hmm.
oppression, uh, racism you couldn't even imagine, bro.
Hmm.
Like you cannot even imagine the murders, the mistreatment, the rapes, the degradation, social degradation, the inferiority complex that was going on in Mississippi. And I'm just talking about the way they treated the black people. And as bad as what you heard about the way they treated black people, you can't. They treated the Native Americans even worse.
Hmm.
You talking about a state that not only threw the Native Americans out during during the Trail of Tears, but they literally had a state government vote to send all of its African American what's the word members or the people who lived black people who lived in Mississippi.
Hmm.
They had a state vote to send them all back to Africa.
Hmm.
I mean, unimaginable racism, bro. The
Hmm.
whole time we're talking about Protestants. We're talking about Protestants that did that slavery, Protestants that threw all the Native Americans out, Protestants that were hated the black Protestants.
Hmm.
Even when you took the religion, they still hated you. So around the time that like I think it was around the end of World War II or something like that, when the economy went bad, post slavery, that a lot of black people went up north for jobs, bro. These were hardworking men that want to take care of their families, bro.
Hmm.
Now I'm not saying that everybody. I'm not trying to purify us and say that all black men wanted a job, but that was the primary point of going up north for
Hmm.
employment,
Hmm.
to buy houses and to take care of your family and to bring your family out of Mississippi to Chicago. So Jeff Ford, his family was from Mississippi.
Hmm.
These people were literally born in Mississippi, and they moved to Chicago. Um, and he became as a young man. I'm talking before the age of like 21. I mean, very young man. He became a leader
Hmm.
of the Blackstone Rangers, who became the uh, I forget the name of the so he got it's okay. So he was just a local, Blackstone leader.
Hmm.
And he was one of the leaders that kept the crack out of the community. He
Hmm.
really kept the crack out of the community. And then there was a crackdown. He went to jail, and then he came in. So you know
Hmm.
what that sounds like. That
Right.
sounds like
Yeah, yeah.
um,
Conspiracy. Government
conspiracy stuff.
conspiracy. Yeah, get ready.
Exactly.
Get him out of the way, bring the crack in, destroy the community.
Yeah. So now here's the thing. So a lot of those guys were more scientists,
Gotcha.
more-ish scientists for the people who don't know. And I don't know if you broadcast it or not, but I just wanted to make sure everybody understood. The
Hmm.
more scientists started out in the early 1900s. They were the predecessor to Nation of Islam, Elijah Muhammad. People even said that Elijah Muhammad was at one point in time a member of the more science movement.
Hmm.
And then they, and they have their headquarters is now in Chicago. Originally it was in New Jersey,
Hmm.
Newark, New Jersey, and then they headquarters in Chicago. So it's a lot of those people in Chicago. And he was originally in that, but and then Alhamdulillah through then he moved the people to more scientists, more
Hmm.
science. Now then he got into Sunni Islam, and that's what they call him, Imam Malik.
Okay.
Imam Malik. And Imam Malik gravitated, brought the Islam into the organization. And today, or even what I can imagine like today because I'm not there, but um, they they have a lot of Islamic influence, bro. Like when they get together, they talk about Allah, they and things of nature like that. They have a lot of good influence, and he became a Muslim. He took Shahada and became a Muslim.
Mm-hmm.
Alhamdulillah. And a lot
Gotcha.
of people, a lot of people in Chicago are Muslim, through his influence, including his
Wow.
children, including his children.
Mm-hmm.
His daughter is more of like the Sufi movement, but his sons and grandsons that more into like the Sunni movement.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Um, Another question I wanted to ask. At one point in time, we're talking about in the past how we had like the impact and the influence of Islam and hip hop music, and then in the culture. But it seems now that there was an active effort, it seemed to me like there was an active effort to get it out. Do you think there was a
Okay.
conspiracy to remove Islam from hip hop?
Absolutely,
Okay.
100% excellent observation. Because in the 80s, early 80s, the 90s, the record industry started to get away from the political rap.
Mm-hmm.
The political rap, the African rap had the strongest Islamic influence.
All right.
And the record, it got to understand, they wanted something they could exploit. They wanted something they can destroy the black community with. So they financed the negative aspects of hip hop, negative aspects of rap,
Mm-hmm.
which is in reality the over sexualized, drugged, um, crime rap.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you think about it, like when I talk about, to the hippity hop, right, that era, they were talking about the community being down and drugs coming in. But the rapper, the leader, the singer was telling you in a way, hey, let me tell you about what's going on so that you don't fall into it. When Slick Rick said, hey, young world, the world is yours.
Mm-hmm.
Young world, the world is yours. You see what I'm saying? And then he talked about the story of I forget the name of it. You probably remember the song. Remember the one about the kid who got in the crime, he was running
Oh, yeah.
around.
Children's story.
Children's story.
Mm-hmm.
Children's story was about crime.
Mm-hmm.
But the meaning behind it was don't do crime.
Right. Right.
Gangster rap was let's do crime.
Yeah. Right.
Drill
Right.
music is let's kill black men. It became bolder and bolder. So you go from talking about crime, don't do it,
Mm-hmm.
to crime with gangster rap, to drill music. Let's do more than just crime. Let's go kill black men. Because you got to remember, as much as even myself, it's difficult for me to talk to you and be real with you when I talk about hip hop. I'm gonna be honest with you
Mm-hmm.
because of my love for these people.
Right.
I love NWA. I love Too Short, and I love the gangster rappers like Snoop Dogg.
Right.
But Snoop Dogg there were certain phrases in there, man, and stuff like, I don't give a F about a B.
Mm-hmm.
It was misogyny, man, the hatred
Right.
of women.
Right. Right. And
And
that's
and and
that's something I had to come to grips with myself recently. I'm like, yo,
it's hard
all
to
I'm
it's
like,
hard to
yo, I
face
love
it.
the music, but all these dudes is disrespecting
But
women. I can't.
I literally had to have a conversation with my wife,
Hmm.
not only today but before, about the reality of it. You love them, but when you look back about and you see your heart loves these people. That's why it's so dangerous. Music is so dangerous
Wow.
because your heart loves these people. You love the movement, but the movement is the hip hop. No. Let me rephrase this. The rap, gangster rap movement and the drill music is the worst movement that black people have ever faced since we've been here in the United States of America, including slavery.
Wow.
Let me show you. And we now Muslim. We know we Muslim, so we got to bring the proofs.
Hmm.
Slavery was about incarceration, correct?
Correct.
Slavery, because of the incarceration of slavery and the forcing of work and things like that, then the family became divided. Is it the 13th Amendment that says that banished slavery, and it said that all slavery is over.
Mm-hmm.
It had three parts. First part, we stop where slavery is over. Second part, when the government is no longer going to associate with anyone who is involved in slavery. Third part, except for the incarcerated
Mm-hmm.
person who's charged incarcerated.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
Didn't hit what has produced more incarcerated black folks? Slavery or the war on drugs?
War
The
on
war
drugs.
on the war on drugs has okay. I'll give you an example. When they freed the slaves of, and I'm paraphrasing right now. Please look and get more information. When they freed the slaves of certain areas, they literally freed hundreds of thousands of black people.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the hip hop, the rap era, war on drugs era, the Reaganomics era, and in the time of mass incarceration, they put two, three, four times more people, black people in chains than the transatlantic slave trade, which was created by the Catholic Church, Pope Nicholas V.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm saying to you is that the most destructive impact that happened to African Americans happened under the influence of rap and drill music. More black men have died by violence under drill music and the gangster rap eras
Mm-hmm.
than the Ku Klux Klan murdered from 1866 to 1966.
Mm.
Remember
Wow.
that the time of the Great Migration was 18th. We were free. Okay. Let me backtrack. We were freed three times in the history of the United States of America.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, we were freed literally. Federally in 1964, I believe it is 1963, 1964, right? Then you have Juneteenth, where Texas freed they didn't free their African American, their blacks until 1965.
Mm-hmm.
But did you know there's also a Declaration and Proclamation in Oklahoma with the Cherokee Indians who freed their slaves in 1866?
Okay. I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. So there were three actual free. I'm saying three Emancipation Proclamations.
Mm-hmm.
Now Juneteenth was not an actual proclamation because they were under the actual proclamation was in the federal government, but Texas had to be forced to put it to had to be forced to implement.
Mm-hmm.
But if you actually literally Google the Cherokee Declaration of Declaration Proclamation,
Pro
Emancipation
yeah, Miss Brown.
Emancipation
Yeah, yeah.
Proclamation. There's a second actual Declaration Proclamation,
Okay.
right? And then in 1866 the Ku Klux Klan was born. The soldiers who failed in the Confederate Army started the Ku Klux Klan,
Mm-hmm.
and the Ku Klux Klan ran the black people out of the South. Not all, but a lot, because the black people were running from these quote unquote Christian Knights of the Ku Klux Klan, the Protestant Christian Knights of the Ku Klux Klan.
Mm-hmm.
And the second most lynched people in the South were actually Italian Catholics. See, so that's basically what was happening. I mean, but if you look at rap music, and I'm not blaming rap music. Understand what I'm saying? I'm talking about the era
Right.
of rap music, because remember there were times when there was no Bloods and Crips in New York, was no Bloods and Crips in Philadelphia. In fact, when I was in college in 93, 94, 95, there were no Bloods and Crips in New York City. And in fact, people used to laugh and they would say, man, DC would never have Bloods and Crips.
Mm-hmm.
Philly would never have Bloods and Crips. Can you imagine a Blood Crip in New York? That's not a New York thing. They used to laugh
Yeah, I remember.
because, yeah, because DC has a clique culture.
Mm-hmm.
See, you know, people thought that Washingtonians would never form gangs because Washingtonians believe in cliques. It'd be 3 or 4 people who would do a certain thing. See what I'm saying? Small itty bitty groups. They call them cliques. So
Hmm.
people never thought there'd be Bloods and Crips in the DC area because you know their culture, the clique culture. But boy, did that change.
Right. Right.
Boy, did that change.
Hmm.
So, but then you got the drug era. Look how many people died just from cocaine alone, from crack cocaine alone. People's lives were changed. People are literally still recovering from the crack era to this day.
Hmm.
Families have never been the same. And the children that you see out here today are the grandchildren. They're actually our children. These are our children, our parents' grandkids
Hmm.
that are out here running these streets. But because our generation was so destroyed by crack cocaine, the values of family have been absolutely wiped out. The black family, no one wants to admit it, but the black family was literally morally annihilated by the crack era.
Hmm.
Annihilated. It's not been the same. Literally, I talk to kids on a daily and weekly basis that have never been down to the Carolinas, never been in this. They don't know anything about the Deep South. They don't know their culture. They can't even tell you their grandfather's father's name.
Right. Mm.
Families completely destroyed. And even you and I, we have to go and do research to find out. The ones
Yeah.
like you and I, we have to literally start asking in our 40s, in our 30s, in our 40s, in our 50s, hey, what was my great grandfather's name?
Right.
And now you're discovering, you know, me and another brother, he literally just discovered that his family was not actually from one state, they were from another state.
Hmm.
I just talked to a young man that didn't even know his grandfather's name,
Wow.
that literally did not know where his grandfather was born,
Hmm.
couldn't tell you his grandfather's story. But because the family has been so demoralized, I know young African American children that never lived in a house with a man.
Hmm. Hmm.
But in the 80s, in the 70s, in the 60s, this was it wasn't like that.
Right. Right.
You have to acknowledge the fact that hip hop became hijacked by
Hmm.
outsiders who
Right.
want to exploit the people for money, but they also want to underhand the good efforts that were made.
Hmm.
It wasn't just they exploiting for money, because when you start talking about the black executives like Puffy Combs, who exploited his own people
Right.
like a typical cracker, Southern cracker. He was a cracker. A cracker is somebody who cracks a whip. I'm not talking
Yeah.
about
Skin
cracker in
color.
the sense,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, no, people gotta understand, we're not talking about skin color when you say cracker. A
Hmm.
cracker was somebody on a plantation who cracked that whip,
Hmm.
who came and enforced the same old system.
Hmm.
A cracker was never a liberator, never a revolutionary, never a helper. A cracker was somebody who enforced the same old racist institution. That's what Puffy Combs did. He exploited the black people too.
Hmm. Well, hold on, brother. Jelani, they're about to cut us off again, but
Got you.
I think that we have enough for right now. So can we wrap it up now?
Yeah, alhamdulillah. So let me just throw one small thing in there too.
All right.
About hip hop and how things went wrong is that you also, I want you, inshallah, in your studies, look up the whole quote unquote African Bambaataa and the X clans, and
Right.
see all these the X clans, NWAs, all these rap groups were fake and phony. If you look at the reality, X Clan end up going to jail because they had molested and raped a 13-year-old girl.
Excellent.
All these, your X Clan, Professor
Yeah.
X, and
To the
another
east,
one.
my brother, to the
It's to
east.
the east. All talking all that stuff, and then in
Yeah.
reality, they did nothing more than exploit their own people, just like everybody else.
Damn.
Um, because they want the spiritual leadership of X Clan and all the X Clan, which was into the Egyptology. Egyptology is shirk. When you start getting into shirk, you start getting into all kind of immorality.
Hmm.
And so, but remember, Dr. Malachi York was the spiritual leader of the Zulu nation, African Bambaataa,